Once a month or so, we invite medical researcher Lorna Vanderhaeghe to Studio 4 to talk about nutritional medicine. Today, she's intrigued by foods and vitamins that go from good for you to bad for you and back to good for you. Some new studies suggest coffee consumption is good for you, too much calcium not so good for you, and it goes on and on. It is my pleasure to welcome Lorna Vanderhaeghe back to Studio 4 to tell us more.
It's always my pleasure to be here.
Well, always nice to see you. Calcium confusion galore.
Right. You know, it's really nothing new. The interesting thing is, you know, over a decade ago, there was research showing that calcium, too much calcium and the wrong kinds of calcium may be problematic. And then it sort of goes away because, you know, we've been promoting calcium for bone health forever. And interestingly enough, if you think about it, the majority of women are taking calcium supplements, and yet we're still seeing loss of bone.
Okay, do we need to take calcium supplements if we have a good diet?
Well, if you have a good diet, and I don't think anybody has a good diet, so I don't think anybody is truly getting enough calcium. It's the type of calcium that you need to be aware of, and I don't think people need as high doses as they've been taking. You know, the recommendation to take 1,000 to 1,500 milligrams a day, that's a lot of calcium on top of what your dietary intake of calcium is. And most people are taking the cheap, not absorbable forms of calcium. And in all the studies, in every study where they just had women take calcium alone with nothing else, they all lost bone, all of them. So I have no idea how calcium ever became the panacea for bone health when we look at the studies where they just took calcium without anything else.
Well, you have said many times, it's not what you put in your body, it's what your body absorbs. So when you say take the right calcium, how do you know it's the right calcium? Well,
calcium comes in many forms, and calcium's very hard to absorb. That's one of the biggest problems. I mean, the reason why Tropicana and the orange juice companies have added calcium citrate to their orange juice is because it makes it more absorbable. Drinking calcium in the form of milk and things that, you know, create lots of mucus in the gut is a terrible way to take calcium. So if you're downing your calcium supplements with a glass of milk, probably the worst thing you can do.
Okay, so stop doing that.
Stop doing that, and you want the right kinds of calcium. So one of the problems with the big meta-analysis that just came out that everybody's been reading about in the newspaper regarding calcium and hardening of the arteries and breast calcifications is that people were, first off, it was a meta-analysis. So what that means is they look at multiple studies and then they evaluate the risk of cardiovascular disease, or they look at how many people got heart attacks or cardiovascular disease versus those who didn't take calcium or reduced levels of calcium. And what they discovered is that it's the certain types of calcium in high doses that could be problematic, and they really didn't distinguish between that in the study. So that's where the confusion comes in.
Sure, and as you read these studies, as you know, it gets more confusing. But bottom line, if you are just an ordinary guy walking around with a heart problem, should you take calcium or not, or get a blood test to know if you need calcium or what?
Well, you know, the thing is, I think we'd go back to the basics. First off, 1 in 4 women get osteoporosis or have osteoporosis in this country.
1 in
8 men. So it also affects men, and we never talk about men. You need calcium, and if you're not getting enough of it in your diet, and you know, dairy products are supposed to be the main source of high-dose calcium, but it's so poorly absorbed from dairy that I really don't recommend that source.
All dairy, what about yogurt?
Yogurt's like better because you ferment the milk. We look at things like broccoli and kale also have great forms of calcium that are actually absorbable forms. If you're going to take a supplement, I would recommend it be about 500 milligrams. The label on the supplement has to say elemental. If it doesn't say elemental, then you may only be getting, you know, 30 milligrams of calcium. So it's important to really note whether the label says elemental, and then you want the right kinds.
Okay, but how does your body know if you have too much?
Oh, well, we can do tests to look at calcium in arteries. As women, we have mammograms. They can tell us when we're getting calcium deposits in our breasts as well, and they'll show up like a light bulb in a mammogram. And so it's important to understand that when you take calcium, it's about getting the right type. So things like citrates, glycinates, aspartate. You don't want carbonates and gluconates. And so for women who are listening right now, go look at your bottle. If it says gluconate and carbonate, switch to the good forms of calcium that actually get in the bone instead of floating around your arteries or your breasts. And calcium needs other nutrients to stay in the bone. If you don't have those other nutrients present, then it floats around the body.
Okay.
And that would be magnesium, vitamin K2, MK7, which has got phenomenal research for bone health and artery health, and vitamin D3.
Okay, so our bones are in constant state of regeneration. You taught me that.
Yes.
Now, what does that have to do with our liver and our kidneys and our immune system and our hormones and all those things working together?
Well, they do, and that's the thing with the body is constantly in flux. So different systems talk to each other, and when it comes to bone health, it's not just about calcium. It is about all the other minerals. It's about having your hormones in balance, and I think inflammation has more to do with the increased risk of heart attack that they found in the women taking calcium than anything else, because if you don't take enough magnesium, and magnesium is a powerful anti-inflammatory for your arteries and your heart, then you have this dysfunction because you have too much calcium and not enough magnesium.
Right. Now, can you get magnesium from food?
You can get it from food, but not enough. 82% of Canadians are magnesium deficient. It's been removed from our grains, it's removed from our water supply, clogs up our city water pipes. And, you know, when we look at magnesium, you need, again, the right kind of magnesium, glycinates.
Okay, but is that in a multi?
That would be, you could get magnesium and calcium in a really good quality multi. We'll have 500 milligrams of calcium in the right forms, aspartate and glycinate. And then it'll have the right kinds of magnesium in the form of glycinate. And it'll have vitamin D3 and other bone-building minerals. And I really think people should go to the health food store and buy bone boosters, which are vitamin K2, MK7, and vitamin D3, because they are the superstars.
Bone boosters.
Yes.
Okay, you could spend your whole morning taking pills.
Well, you could, but if you buy the right supplement, you're going to get the majority of them right there in the package, and that's the key. So, you know, doing a little bit of research, and, you know, my website, which is hormonehelp.com, has over 4,000 pages of information. I've got 3 free books up there. One is Get a Grip on Arthritis and Other Inflammatory Disorders, which has a whole section on osteoporosis and osteoarthritis.
Sure. Essential fatty acids, are they in the mix, or do they matter?
Well, this is great you brought it up, because they've actually done studies where they did an 18-month trial where they gave women just calcium, and then they gave women calcium and GLA. And last time I was on, we talked about GLA for beautiful skin. But GLA is a fatty acid found in borage oil. And what they found at the end of the 18 months, and they did DEXA scans, which are really good quality scans to know bone health. At the end of the 18 months, the women who took calcium alone lost up to 2% of their bone. And the women who took calcium with GLA gained 1.5 to 3% of bone over 18 months.
Right.
So it helped absorb the calcium, and that's really what you want to do, because calcium is just so poorly absorbed.
Well, what happens to somebody who doesn't take anything? They just eat.
Right. Well,
eat and drink. And they live to be 96 and their bones are strong. Is that good genes? What is it?
Well, the thing is, remember the 96-year-old, and we all know them, the 90-year-old, the 85-year-old. Remember, they didn't eat all this processed packaged food when they were kids. And they ran outside and played. They didn't sit in front of video games. So they built nice, strong bones when they were younger. Right? Exercise is key, and you don't have to go to a gym. 10 minutes a day with your weights in the bathroom is going to make a huge difference. Buy those Velcro weights, wear them on your wrists and ankles, wear them when you're at home, wear them when you're walking. Anything for weight-bearing exercise, and walking is always the best.
Okay, and when you're done, you can have a cup of coffee now.
Right, as long as you've got your magnesium, because every cup of coffee that you drink loses magnesium.
Okay, but that was another one of those studies that said now, you know, a few cups of coffee, good for you, good for men with prostate or something?
Well, you know, coffee is good for us. If it's, I always tell people, buy organic coffee. If you love coffee, have 1 big cup a day. You know, it's great for getting your bowels moving, so reducing the risk of, you know, colon cancer, because things are moving through you faster.
Right.
Gives you a little bit of energy. If you're a woman who's got low blood pressure and, you know, adrenal exhaustion, you're going to love it. and just limit it, because high amounts of coffee is not such a great thing.
Well, everything in balance.
Everything in balance and moderation, absolutely.
And we'll be in balance because we're going to go to this Canadian Red Cross fundraiser at Tojo's on June 12th. Jan Arden will be there, the Canadian Tenors will be there, and there's tickets available.
Yes,
So
this
just
is a
call
fundraiser.
Tojo fundraiser, yes. Nice to see you. Thank you. Lorna Vanderhaeghe.